And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of A Handful of Hope. I am here with Stacey, who is a trauma and alchemy coach, intuitive channel, and energy worker who specializes in overall spiritual health, and especially how energy can get stuck in the body and greatly affect our daily lives. Stacey has been in the health and wellness industry for over 15 years and began as a body transformation specialist who revolutionized the fitness space through her internationally recognized fitness program, Bootycamp, where she helped hundreds of women not only change their body, but completely change their lives. But a lesser known fact is that behind the scenes, Stacey was struggling with an intense PTSD from a sexual assault that occurred at age 26. Stacey walked away from it all, including her thriving business, to start her healing journey, and is now emerging to share her story of recovery and help others do the same. Stacey is now the founder of a social impact movement called I Am A Lighthouse, which helps women recovering from trauma or facing adversity through sacred counsel events and global service to others. Her new venture back into the health and spiritual wellness space is called Body Honor. Through one-on-one sessions, online program, and community, Stacey helps women come together and address how past trauma can manifest in the body, and teaches her clients new ways to look at themselves through the eyes of self-compassion and come back to their own truth so they can access and embody complete emotional freedom. Stacey's mission is to release the stigma of the word trauma, and for all of us to know our pain is our greatest teacher. Oh, I love that. Medicine for the world, and that healing truly is possible for everyone. Thank you so much, Stacey, for being here, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You know, we were talking a little bit offline about and I loved how you said it, that not everyone at some point has woken up and asked the question, you know, what if this was my last day? In light of everything that's going on. And I'm wondering if you might expand on that, and how maybe that's a really powerful segue into how we can look at trauma, because we've also talked about there's this collective trauma going on, right? Yeah. It's this very, as intense as we're all feeling it, it can also be a very unifying in the sense that this is the first thing at our time where all 7+ billion of us are going through it. So maybe just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it this morning. It's wild for me because usually I'm working like on the individual level, or I'm speaking about purging like a past trauma. And like, I realized this morning, we're all in the middle of like a collective acute trauma. Like, we're in it right now. And like, you know, the literal definition of trauma is a distressing or disturbing experience without resolve. And it's like, we're all in it together right now. Like, who isn't distressed and disturbed right now? And there's this uncertainty. There's this, we have no idea what's going to happen. There's no resolve. We're trying to make sense of it. We're trying to control it. And really all that we have within our control is to let ourselves feel everything that's coming up. And yeah, you and I were just talking about how like that first moment, I know I have it when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, is it real? Okay, it's real. It's not a dream. And I just like put one hand on the belly, one hand on the heart. And it's like, what am I feeling right now? What's going on? Like, just tapping into that space. And I think all of us are facing that. We're confronted with our feelings that I think we've been running from for a long time. A lot of us.
I love that. I think that, gosh, that speaks so powerfully to it, because so much of what we're experiencing, right, is it's not just the experience that's happening, but it's an accumulation of experiences that we may not have dealt with. We may not, you know, many people who are at home right now, one of the challenges with being at home for this extended period of time, it's the first time you may have really had to sit with yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And to be with yourself, or I'll see people talk about how they don't want to be at home with their families because maybe there's something they haven't dealt with their spouse. And now all of a sudden they have to confront that and face it. So somebody who's in that space, Stacey, somebody who's having to finally face the stuff that they may have been running from for so long, where can they go? What is something, the first step that they should take in trying to embrace the facing of it?
I think with the feeling, there's a bunch of different ways that we can go. And there's some of us that, you know, maybe we're in a little less like, you know, again, we're not being, afraid of being evicted, or we're single and we don't have kids, like there's some of us that are going through very different stages. Some of us have the luxury of having the time to even face this. And then there's people that are like, oh my gosh, they're now working from home, have a family, you know, have a partner, have kids. So, you know, I'll speak to kind of both of them, you know, because sometimes maybe it's only a 2 or 3 minute break that some people are getting, and some people have the luxury of having a lot more time. But I would say for me, going back to that first moment when I wake up in bed, I make sure I spend like a few minutes checking in. And if there's a feeling that comes up, like right now, there's fear for, you know, my parents, right? And their health. Well, what's in my control? Can I call them? Can I connect with them? You know, can I feel that fear and what comes up in me, but what is within my control? I can't control anything out there, but I can call and I can connect. I can write. Writing helps me a lot in the morning, getting out some of those feelings. So I recommend to a lot of people starting with journaling. You know, you're a big journaler too. Breath work I love if you do have more time, because there's a lot of purging and releasing. If you mentally kind of are like, I don't know where to go with all these feelings, I don't know where some of this is from, breath work can really help. And there's so much free online right now and resources for breath work. So breath work is a big one, because you'll find emotions come up that are stuck in the body that you don't even know where they were from. And a good old cry and a scream. I mean, I let myself, like, I tap in every few hours. What's going on with me? Like, am I too much online right now? Did I look too much at the news? Did I have a distressing phone call? Do I need to just take a moment to breathe? And so even if it's 2 or 3 minutes, getting some time and some space to yourself, it can be something as simple as that, and letting the emotions come up, you know, even screaming into a pillow. You know, a girlfriend is a shaman, and she talked about the connection between, you know, the COVID symptoms, and lungs is grief, fever is anger, influenza is overwhelm. And so any of those feelings that you may be feeling, get them out in whatever way that you can, and whatever modality suits you. That's the first step. Like, what feels good to you as starting to connect to that space in baby steps.
Stacey, we were talking offline about we were both kind of mutually observing this, and that pre-2020, this last month, if you would have gone to lunch, if you and I went to lunch, it's a place setting, not for 2, but for 4, right? It's you and I sit down and our phones are there. And our connecting time is defined by how many times our phones buzz, beep, ding, or ring. And I'm giving you my presence to the point of I'm not occupied by something going on over there. And what we're starting to observe now is it seems like more people in this time where we're removed, it seems like we really are connecting, and we're starting to appreciate the value of that. How important is connection during a time like this, and how important is connection to and navigating through trauma?
I think when we start to feel, you know, for some of us, maybe certain things for the very first time, you can feel like you're really alone in your pain. And that's what's fascinating about this time is, like we said, we have so many people going through it together, where previously in isolation, maybe you would feel like no one would understand you, or no one would get what you're going through. And right now, it gives me chills. Like right now we have that ability to go, hey, I need some help. And there's so many people, like, look at what you're doing and creating. I see so many experts willing to give free time, therapists donating time, free resources coming up. So even if it's, you know, a Zoom chat with your friend, you know, which some of us are like, oh wow, Zoom and FaceTime are blowing up. But even if it's just like making that phone call to the family and having a conversation. I mean, I'm having beautiful conversations with my mom that I never thought we would have, because we're facing this type of a thing. So connecting with your family when certain feelings are coming up, friends, and reaching out for help. And right now, I feel like the collective is really ready and willing to help in a way, you know, unreal. Like everybody's really stepping up to go, like, what's going on? How can I help you? So whether you just need help or whether you're a leader in this space, you know, I think there's just so much available as far as connecting and making sure that you don't isolate, you know, because everyone is here to listen.
I so agree. I think that it's been absolutely beautiful to observe people raising their hand to help. You know, you and I were talking about how just deeply honored I've been at how many people have raised their hand to help through this medium.
Yeah.
The local news here in Santa Barbara, they're doing an ongoing series on Look for the Helpers. It's one of my favorite things to see because they just find people who are out there helping and just do a little snippet of story. And I love seeing that. And I feel like what's really beautiful about that is that people are starting to form communities around helping now, right? Versus before, many communities were around, it would start with, you know, I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. They would start with maybe not what the community is representing, but what the end goal is in mind. So we need to bring this community together so that we can raise this money, or we need to bring this community together to grow our business. We need to bring this community together to further this cause. But I feel like now what's happening with everyone going through this is that we're bringing communities together solely based on the idea of helping and serving others.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think what's like an important point that's coming up for me is making sure that there's that infinity loop of the give and receive. Like I have a call at 3:00, which is based on, okay, what can we do in service with a group of people? And then at 5:00, I've got some family that I went through a healer training that was a year-long program last year to fill my cup. And we're going to talk to each other about like, what's going on? Are you okay? So making sure no matter where you are in this space, that even if you're like, I've seen people jump to the service too, which is beautiful, but also make sure that there's that loop of give and receive so that we're all filling so that we can continue to have that bandwidth to hold each other all through this. And some of us that are givers don't allow ourselves to receive a lot as well. So making sure no matter where you are in this process, that there is this give and receive, because that really is what life is all about.
Yeah, that speaks so much to me because I
knew it would, because you're a giver.
Yeah, I've been notorious for that my whole life. Give, and I've struggled with the receive. You know,
I check you every once in a while.
Yeah, one of the most beautiful things I ever was shared with me, and this is maybe relevant right now, and then I want to jump right back to, is my friend John. He was going through ALS several years ago, and we were talking about my birthday coming up, and I've always had issues with my birthday and receiving things from other people, and I remember he stopped me and he said, you know, when you give so much to others, but when you don't allow others to give to you, you're unwilling to receive, you're robbing them of the same gift that you get to receive every day from giving to others, right?
It's such a great way of looking at it, right? Like taking away that gift from them, of like, it makes them feel wonderful when they can give to you. Yeah,
and so many people, they have so many gifts that they could be sharing right now, where they're, you know, if you I've been using the example, like if you're a bartender and you've been laid off, you know, do a Zoom call and teach people how to make your signature cocktail, host a happy hour, and if you need money for it, charge a $5 ticket.
Right.
You know, shut up. Because I think one of the limitations in giving sometimes is we define ourselves by our titles as opposed to by our gifts and our magic. And titles are so limiting, right? Because it makes us think that the only thing we have is this little narrow scope. But if we look at like, and I love, you know, I really got that from your bio, because your bio has this diverse range of experience. But in that diverse range of experience,
we've been through a little bit, haven't we?
Yeah, but we've
known each other almost 20 years. It's been a ride, right?
It gives you so much. That's what gives you such a broad range of gifts to give. So people were just to look at, you know, what's my magic? What do I have to share? And during this time of be bold enough to step forward and share it, gosh, what about, imagine the communities and that would be formed around that.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I feel called to step forward more than ever. I kind of was in that dance of, you know, even though you know that I used to be in the public eye a lot, I still had a fear of being seen again in this new space. It's a whole new space. So I think we all navigate that. Even though I had been in the public eye, there's still this like, oh, but will people understand and want to hear what I have to say now in this new area? And so you go for it. And then once you get that like just takes one person that tells you, oh my God, you sharing your story, or that tip that you gave, or telling me you had a rough day. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. The vulnerability that I'm seeing is absolutely stunning, and it should just make all of us know that everything we have to offer is valuable and worthy, and, and just come forward and share your voice,
Stacey, how important is self-compassion during a time like this?
It's going back to that give and receive loop too. I was listening to a little video the other day that talked about, for especially people that are wanting to step forward in service and leadership, that there's like panic in the panic. There's like panic to help the people. And I so resonated with that, because I'm telling myself, I got to do all the things. Oh my God, I've got to do this, and I've got to create this group, and I've got to do this, and I've got to help all the humans. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, how are you feeling first? Check in with self first. It comes from in here. Then you get to go out. It's like, check in with self. So making sure that there's always, a self-nurturing and compassion, not judging yourself if you have a tough day. Like recently, there's times where I'm like, I didn't get enough done with these projects, because all of us know that there's a lot of projects now that we're all connecting. People are like, oh my God, like, let's get together, let's form this group, let's do this, and there's so many beautiful things, right? But we can't do it all. And so not judging ourselves, having compassion, and really checking in, listening and honing into what is for your highest good right now, as far as what to do. And when do you need to shut off the phone? When do you need to get off the computer? When do you need to go take a bath? When do you need to get out in nature? Like, taking care of yourself and making sure that you're not judging yourself for things, And even I saw a thing the other day about, like, it was a meme that was like, you don't have to write the novel in a day. You don't have to read 10,000 books. Of course, it's a beautiful time to create, but like, don't judge yourself for not starting the podcast right away. Don't judge yourself for not, teaching your kids, every different language while you're home. And there's so much on our plates right now. So we're not, superhuman, taking this in baby steps and asking ourselves like what we need to do that day to take care of ourselves, give ourselves love, and, celebrate the wins. And this is a huge time for feeling and processing. Creating is great, but making sure you're not judging yourself for not doing enough right now. Getting through the day is enough right now.
How do we begin to release judgment of ourselves? Because I think that's such an important thing, is to give ourselves permission not to judge. So many of us were experiencing the intensity of the emotions we're experiencing, not just because events that are happening that have happened or may happen, but because we're judging ourselves on what that means. I lose my job. I lost my job, and that means I'm an inadequate parent because I'm no longer able to provide for my kids, or I'm the failure that my father only said I would be, or right. So we have these judgments that we may not be aware of that are really barking in our ears right now. And I agree, like, such a powerful place we can be is just allowing ourselves not to judge. How can we begin to do that?
That's a long conversation. I could do an hour just on non-judgment, but I think starting with, I love a reframe, I'm innocent in, judge ourselves for a lot of things. And were you innocent in, you did everything you could within your control to keep that job? You're innocent in that, I bring up that word of like, are you innocent in, your path? Like, even with my sexual assault, I talk about, like, I was innocent in thinking these people were safe. I was innocent in taking a drink, thinking, reframe these things that you judge yourself for. Cause I used to judge myself on like the people that I hung out with or who I surrounded myself with. But like this judgment of, oh my God, I didn't, have all these conversations with friends. I didn't fix that situation. Did you do all that you could? Can you create an action? What do you want to do about it right now? Is there something within your control to create some alchemy? Like, is it forgiving yourself? Is it forgiving another? Do conversations need to be had? Sometimes there is a like in-person conversation for alchemy, or as Zoom conversation now, or phone conversation. Sometimes it's writing a letter, if I'm judging myself for something, I may write a compassionate letter to myself about like, wow, you did the best you could back then. You did the best for who you were back then. You're now a different person who makes different choices. And writing almost like a letter of like, you know, thank you for the teachings and the lessons that experience gave me, but not judging myself. And yeah, we're all doing the best right now. Like to take care of your kids right now and put food on the table, or to get up, take a shower, connect with your friends, like do all these things. Like like I said, we're doing enough. And judgment against oneself. I don't know, some people that are yogis out there, you know, like ahimsa, non-violence, we kind of see it as like an external thing, like do no harm to another. But judging oneself is also an act of violence against ourselves. Like that really landed for me one time when I heard that.
I felt goosebumps.
Like that's violent against myself.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, you're awful. You should have done this. You should have done that. You're not a good person. Like we only grow through higher frequency and vibration and love and alchemy. And rather than going, oh my gosh, you know, you didn't do this. You're not enough. You're not worthy. It's alchemizing all of those to go to a better state of like what's within my control right now.
Oh, I felt that one when you said it's violence against yourself.
Yeah.
It's so, that's so raw and perfectly put. And we don't look at it as that, right? Because we keep it so bottled up within, and we think that in those moments that it's necessary, it's deserving, it's our penance we're supposed to pay. Although when we look externally and we see it visited onto another, we'll be some of the first people to say, well, they don't deserve that. That shouldn't happen. Be kind to yourself. But we won't say the same thing into ourselves. We'll visit violence heavily on ourselves, but we'd always want peace and no violence to be harmed unto another.
Yep. Yeah.
You using a word, and it just occurred to me that I may not, some of the people watching may not, alchemy. Talk to me about that. What is that?
Ooh, I think finding a best way to put it would be like neutrality or balance. Let's just put it that way, maybe. And also kind of releasing and surrendering to maybe something that has happened. So if I like trauma alchemy, how do I alchemize, find balance and peace and center in, for me, one of my biggest traumas was the sexual assault. Was like, how do I find the neutrality and the balance? And for me, it started a lot with forgiveness, and you know, which is a huge feat, and I do speak about that now, which is somewhat controversial out there in this space, you know, forgiving something like that. But alchemy is coming to that neutral state where it doesn't rock you anymore. There's emotional freedom. There's you're in your center and your balance, where I mean, I actually just put together that, like, I think I met you that year that it happened. I think we worked together at 24-Hour Fitness around that time. We've known each other a long time. But there was a state where, like, for 2 years, I didn't talk about this thing. And I even had dissociative seizures. And this thing rocked me more than anything. But now, like, what I love is, like, I love that, you know, you're so focused on hope right now. It's like, my goal is to give people hope that they can get to the other side. Because if you had told me 15 years ago that I'd be here now, so centered and being able to speak about this and helping people through this, I've alchemized that experience in my life. I've come to this center and neutrality where I can talk about it. It doesn't rock me. I'm, you know, and I'm here to serve others, which brings that to, like, your pain is, you know, a lot of times your biggest teacher can be your purpose. It's medicine for other people. Now it gives me so much joy when other women say, you're giving me hope that I can get through this, you know, and because I've done that inner work on just, you know, we're taking that one experience. We all know we've had plenty of traumatic experiences that stack up, some of us quite a few, and you kind of work on those layer by layer to alchemize them to get to what is your true center.
I love that. How important is it for us to forgive ourselves?
Ooh, so big. In my in a lot of my talks, I joke. I'm like, we start with the F word, and everybody laughs. And I'm like, forgiveness.
I was hoping you were talking about the other F words.
No, I know. That's why everybody laughs, and I'm like, it's the hardest one, man. It really is. I do a lot of letter writing to myself. That's one of my favorite things to do with forgiveness. And then just, again, seeing if there's anything else I need to, that's stuck in there about that. But again, it goes back to that judgment of self. And if you don't forgive yourself and others, it stays stuck. You know, it's a lot of what I do. That energy stays stuck. You know, it only does a disservice to yourself if you are beating yourself up and holding anger and resentment towards others. As we just, you know, said about some of these symptoms, fever being anger, is there locked up grief and anger and all this stuff? This is the time right now to let it all out, you know, in whatever way you can.
Stacey, you've given so much today, and I'm wondering, for people looking at it, I love this idea of alchemizing. If they were to start with just one thing right now, you know, is it compassion? Is it forgiveness? Is it developing some sort of self-therapeutic thing like the screaming in the pillow, you know, doing the check-in with themselves? If people were to take their first step today with it, or maybe they've taken the first step and the second step, what is the most important place they could start? Like, of all that you shared, or maybe it's something you haven't shared yet, what would be the place for somebody to start with this?
Well, what's funny, I know you're saying the one thing, but the last component of this that I think is really important that a lot of people miss is anchoring it in the body. That's what I've seen, that where my past experience from being a trainer really comes into play here, is like we get into our mental and emotional body, but then it's almost like our physical body doesn't resonate it, you know?
Yeah.
So that rewiring the nervous system from that past situation takes a few things. So to be honest, I don't know if the baby step would be just checking in with yourself. Something as simple as one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. What is coming up for me right now? Even if it's 3 minutes, checking in. So checking in with the body, and I like to, again, hand to heart and belly, or hands to my legs. Like there's tactile touch. I'm checking in with, how is the body doing? How's my heart rate? How is my breathing? Is it shallow? So while you're checking in with your mental and emotional state, you know, doing something that connects the body, even if it's like, you know, sometimes I dance right now to move things through my body. If you are getting really heightened, you know, look at animals and what they do in the wild after a trauma. They shake. So sometimes with my clients, if they get really like hyper vigilant, like I just am like, get up, shake, just shake it off. Like something as simple as like letting your jaw move and like groan a little bit, and like shake your hands and shake your body, like to kind of like, you know, we've all seen Tony Robbins, you know, where he like does the jump and scream, and like, there's science behind that to switch your, you know, it's called a pattern interrupt, to kind of like shake you out of it. So tapping into the body while connecting mental and emotional state. So however that simplicity looks for you, that's where I would start.
Right now, a lot of people are at home, shelter in place, in quarantine, whatever that is for them. And they're looking for some resources to maybe utilize, expand, experience during this time. If you could recommend one podcast people would listen to, what podcast would that be?
One.
Just one. Just one.
Just one. The One You Feed, Eric Zimmer.
Okay. Book you recommend people read?
Biology of Belief, Bruce Lipton, or anything by Joe Dispenza. Becoming Supernatural right now, definitely, because it taps into the body.
Okay. And movie or documentary you'd recommend people watch?
Broad answer, Gaia TV. Okay. Rather than going to Netflix, Gaia TV, tons of resources, tons of documentaries, but based on awakening spirituality and the body and the brain. And yeah.
Awesome. Everyone, boy, there's a lot here. And I really hope you do yourself the service of rewatching this a few times, because I think what Stacey's really tapping into here is just not only how you can process trauma, but also how you can process trauma through this time. But in so doing, really form a deeper connection with yourself and others, form a community around things that really matter most to you and believe in, giving yourself permission to forgive, to move beyond, and to, as she so beautifully said, alchemizing your life experiences and embracing them not as these things that happened that broke you or destroyed you, but really the things that were the unique ingredients, if you will, that were now you have the opportunity to bring together to make into the version of you who you're meant to be right now and who you can wake up as tomorrow. I think that there's so much wonderful wisdom for how we can navigate through this time, but not just navigate through this time, of how you can navigate through life going forward. And I encourage you to take what Stacey offered, not as just something to use now, but something as you can use as a foundational piece for wherever you take your life, wherever you take your relationships, and wherever you take your business beyond this. And Stacey, this was absolutely incredible. I thank you so much for your time, your energy, your presence, for your willingness to serve and to help others. And thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. You're, as always, thank you for being such a stand for service and doing what you're doing right now for everybody.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time in another edition of A Handful of Hope. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let me hit that button.